Alright, let's not waste any time and go straight into funworld because we need some fun in this life. Okay, I can't double click. I did this all my life, but I wasn't able to double click. Either way, while we're waiting, you should subscribe. We always wait a long time, so you can subscribe multiple times. So today I want to talk about, it's a bit of a downer topic, as always. I want to talk about a study I read recently while we're continuing to work on the quarry. First things first, though. I mean, you read the title already, so you know it's going to be about Islamophobia, and that is what the study is about. But like I said, first things first, we're going to get rid of the stuff we got in the quarry last time. Lots of dirt, so if we ever want to build something dirty, we can. Might actually, you know, never know the future, but it's definitely possible. Let's get this rid of this. The braid. Don't need that right now. Ooh, I got a lot of access. I was kind of very hopeful that I would get a lot of stone immediately, and I did not. I did not get a lot of stone. Okay, let's see. Basically, we need shovels. Although maybe now I'm getting like hundreds and I'm an idiot, a fool, and an idiot. Yeah, there we go. So maybe now I'm getting like hundreds and hundreds of shovels, and then everything will just be stone, and I won't need the shovels anymore. That would be funny. That would be so funny. All right, there we go. So anyways, the study that I read about Islamophobia is basically the connection between Islamophobia and the far right, which, I mean, we're all kind of already assuming that there is a connection, and they're kind of going into like some of the aspects of it. Its focus is on Europe. So you won't get a study of the American aspect of that. Although, like, if we're talking about people like Trump or whatever, clearly, like, Islamophobia and like the Muslim ban and things like that were a big part of his campaign. Not the only part, but yeah. So what the study is basically trying to figure out is, I mean, some things seem like very obvious, but like, you know, you need studies for that. There were basically three questions that they asked themselves, you know, as a guide for what to research. The first one was, oh no, I'm completely blanking. I should probably have written the questions down. No, but basically, like, they were asking, does having Islamophobic tendencies in a single person make it more likely to have sympathies with far right political parties? So that's the most straightforward one. Ooh. I could have literally died. Okay, my quarry's not really coming how I want it, but it's okay. That's okay. We're thriving on adversity. In the midst of, what is it? In the midst of adversity lies opportunity. Something like that? Who said that? Okay, there we go. So yeah, the first question is like this kind of on an individual level, and then the second question they were asking is whether it actually an overall climate of Islamophobia helps these parties get elected. Oh, I mean, there were actually a bunch of things. So, and then whether having Muslims in the country, like the prevalence of Muslims in the country, if that has a big effect on this. I think that was the three main questions that they were trying to answer. And turns out all of them, yes, it does have an effect. people who are Islamophobic are drawn more to far right parties, often far right. And oh, holy shit! I mean, I could have figured that out, but I didn't. And Islamophobia helps these parties have success. They were also then looking at parties that had achieved electoral success, so they were like in power. Things like Hungary and Poland. Countries like Hungary and Poland have like far-right parties that are in power or were in power. Poland not anymore currently. And then they also looked at other countries that didn't. They only had them in opposition. Yeah, I mean, there basically was like a lot of interesting aspects to it outside of the specific research question. For example, they kind of like talked about how people define themselves, like what like this kind of far right nationalist character is, and they were like very much talking about the in-group out-group thing. Which, I mean, like if you hear about like far right research on far right parties generally, or like far right thought, you hear that a lot. But they were kind of like talking more about how they define it. That you need to basically find yourself obviously an out group. If you're, well, you define an out group, and ideally, well, or a lot of the time, you feel under threat by this out group, right? It's kind of like with the Nazi party, there's the thing, I think it was Umberto Eco, I'm not 100% sure right now, but that fascist parties, not Nazi party, the fascist parties need to both seem really strong and like constantly under threat. And that's kind of like the thing they were pointing up to, right? Like there's, on the one hand, there's like this character of like, oh, it's the national character and we're part of it and we're good just by being it. And there's these other people that are out group. And then also like, but we're under threat for them, whether it's like, real or like a psychological threat, right? Like the great replacement thing or whatever is not a sense a war or anything like that. It's just like the fear of like, oh, the white race is going to be eradicated because we don't have enough babies, and these other races make too many babies, or there's too much race mixing, this kind of thing. So there's this kind of threat that underlies a lot of what draws people to these parties. Yeah, there's also other aspects that they were going into, like obviously like some sort of like idea for tradition, like have this creating an image of this used to be the world, and this is how it needs to be, a very rigid kind of idea of how people have to behave. And like strong sexual norms where like genders are very rigidly defined and have to fit into their role really well, and basically for everyone, not just for themselves, right? Like someone more progressive would be like, well, if you like traditional lifestyle and you freely choose it, that's okay, but it's more about, no, we need to make these people do this, and whether they want it or not. Kind of rigid lifestyle, very sexist, against loose sexual morals or something like that, I guess. What do you say? I mean, the thing is, I do feel like there is a discussion one can have about certain aspects of sexual liberation and how they interplay with real people's life, and what's advantageous for them and what isn't advantageous for them. Like that's an interesting discussion to have. But like if you ultimately, I think like it's still like you want people to be able to choose. This is now I remember what I forgot in Minecraft. I wanted to get some torches to not have to do this in the middle of the dark night, the dark, frightful night. Dark was the night. So yeah, that was interesting. Another aspect that maybe you've also heard about, and they found in their study, is that Islamophobia actually lessens with the more Muslims you actually know. And that was a thing they were also looking at on a countrywide scale, whether having actually a lot of Muslims in the country is a predictor for far-right success. And it's really the opposite, almost, in the sense that if you don't have many Muslims in it, and you can like polemically go against them as as like a political party or a politician, so we have to watch out for creepers. They might creep up on us. There's no real like what do you say? Like, people don't have an exposure to see that this is not actually like true. They can just like imagine in their minds, yeah, we are really under attack. It's really worrying, that kind of thing. And if you actually have like neighbors that are Muslims, and you see that like they're actually like pretty normal people, like there's only like some differences, and they're, especially if they're like Western Muslims, are like just like completely normal. Well, normal is already kind of a weird word, right? Because it implies this in-group, out-group thing again, in a way. But you get what I mean. People that it's sort of kind of the framing that people think, right? Like these people are normal, these people are not normal, kind of. Oh no, that zombie's literally killing himself just to get to me. Kind of romantic in a way. I mean, I appreciate it. You like me so much, you want to eat my brain so much, that you're going to perish for me. Thank you. Thank you for your sacrifice. So here I will have light to my quarry the next night. But yeah, so if you don't know any Muslims, you can just kind of make them more into a boogeyman and a scapegoat, right? And so this is actually my worrying thing. I talked about the Israel-Hamas thing a while ago, and how one of these aspects is like anti-Semitism that people talk about now. And I think like we have this big problem in Europe where like Islamophobia is a real problem, not just for going selfish again, like in the last episode on parasites. It's not just a problem for Muslim people in Europe, even though that should be enough, but it is a problem for like anyone who cares for the values that, like the democratic, open, liberal values, social values that people have in like a modern, in like say post-war Europe, and well, and to some degree also post-war, or like at least post-Civil War, not Civil War, Civil Rights Movement America. It threatens this. Islamophobia threatens this, and one thing, like there is a lot of anti-Semitism, and this is a big problem, but we need to, like, if we're phrasing it as like anti-Semitism is like a Muslim thing, that actually stokes Islamophobia more. And like I said, like Islamophobia is the big problem if you're not on the side of the far right, if you like, democracy, if you like, non-authoritarian lifestyles. Islamophobia is what's really screwing us over, and probably going to screw us over in the future. Like, for example, right now, there's not as much refugees, not as many refugees, not as many immigrants to Europe as there were in like 2015 and stuff. But the rhetoric has gotten much worse. Like even the countries that were quite open, like the the political parties that were quite open, they've taken on like this really anti-immigrant sentiment and like, you know, Fortress Europe kind of thought pattern. And this is just like this is the real worrying thing about the state of democracy in Europe, I think. And if we can counteract this more, and we shouldn't contribute to it if we're not on that side anyways. Yeah, I mean, basically, I'm always saying, like, I mean, I don't think it's impossible that there's something like happens where people are rounded up again or whatever. But if it's in Europe, it's not going to be the Jews this time that are the main target. It's going to be the Muslims, right? Like, I mean, that's just where it's going. Like, these people also hate Jews, right? Like, far right people hate Jews or think that they're like in, like, that there's a massive conspiracy that they are partaking in. So it's going to be terrible. It's kind of linked. This kind of what do you say, like prejudice, stereotypes, this kind of hatred is linked. And so I don't know, we should really talk more about the big one that we are facing. that's the big trouble of our countries. But you know, I'm a bit rambling. Let me see. Is there anything else? Well, oh, there was one funny one aspect that was interesting to me. Discord it's okay. It's okay. I mean, I wish there wasn't this massive hole there, but you know, all right. I'm getting a bit of cold too. Yeah, one last interesting aspect was that the supporters of the far right, when they're in the opposition, are like really anti-state. Obviously, like, you know, they would be like very anti-FBI or something like that. It's like, oh, we're being screwed over, you know. But like once, and again, this is Europe. Once they get into power, they're suddenly like very, very happy with how the state runs. You know, the bureaucracy. At least usually, I think. Possibly the Trump situation could be a different one because, like, they're the deep state or whatever had been a pretty big talking point for him. So, like, his supporters kind of hate these upright. Well, this part of the state, I think. But I would have to think more about that one. But like, I think you get what I mean. But generally, like in Europe, it's like, you know, suddenly, like if the far right is in power, it's like, oh, the states actually runs well. It's great. And I mean, it makes sense, right? Like if your guys win and you're in power, then suddenly, like, you're like, yeah, I'm on board. It's very, very team based. I mean, it makes sense in the way that you can understand it. It doesn't make sense in, like, you know, this is what's actually happening. I mean, that's kind of the thing. Like a lot of actual, like, statistical information about a state's state doesn't seem to matter as much anymore to voting decisions, and it's much more, I would say, well, I would almost say tribal, really. Often I don't use tribal, but you kind of get the feeling more there. Like it's like team sports, or it's very partisan kind of thing. So it doesn't really matter whether the economy is going good or well. It just matters whether your team's in power. And like people, a lot of political scientists think that used to be a bit different, and like the economy, for example, was much more important. But then I think there's also like kind of the limits of how we're looking at what actual economic success is. But I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll talk about this in the next one. I wanted to make an episode about deaths of despair, and it's like it kind of fits into that pretty well. I'm gonna take some notes. Otherwise, I think, yeah, I'm done with this one. So stay non-Islamophobic and spoopy, friends, and I will see you in the next one.